What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another reaction video. Got how every team got its name and identity. Let's check this out.
The NFL is currently made up of 32 different franchises. But did you know over 75 have existed in league history?
Word?
We're turning back the gridiron clock. It's the official evolution of the NFL.
Is this what's the name talking? Dude that be on Good Morning Football? Yeah.
The NFL was born in 1920, known originally as the American Professional Football Association. It started with 14 teams, 12 of them clumped together in the Midwest, 2 others playing in New York.
And in order to join this group, you had to put up $100.
The Akron Pros, Buffalo
for a
All-Americans,
franchise.
Canton Bulldogs,
Notice many of the
Chicago
early
Cardinals.
franchises didn't even have official team logos. That's
Bro,
because teams
the Dayton Triangles? Okay, but they weren't even trying with some of these names. I ain't even gonna hold you, bro. What the
so
hell?
informal back then, they just didn't even create them.
Jim Thorpe was unanimously elected president because of the name recognition that he could garner for this National Pro Football League.
Of the 14 original teams, only 2 would stick around to celebrate the league's 100th anniversary. The Decatur Staleys, known today as the Chicago Bears, and the oldest team in the NFL, the Chicago Cardinals, who have since built their nest in Arizona.
The story behind the Cardinals name really goes back to Chris O'Brien when he purchased the uniforms that the Cardinals were going to wear. He purchased them from the Chicago Maroons, and they were faded, and somebody referred to the jerseys as maroon color, and he said, those aren't maroon, that's cardinal red, and that Cardinal name stuck.
While those 2 franchises are the oldest in the game, they did not win the league's first ever title.
Bro, it's crazy that
belongs to the Akron
NFL has been a thing for like over 100 years now, bro.
0-3. Yes, 3 ties. The Pros weren't just the league's first champions either. They were also the first team in the league to break the color barrier.
The Akron Pros are one of those
shit, was only
teams
one
that
black
are
person?
lost to history, but Fritz Pollard
Frederick
was
Douglass?
both a player and a coach for that Akron Pros team.
Okay.
And since diamond-filled Super Bowl rings were clearly not the rage just yet, all the Pros players received this tiny gold football pendant for their efforts.
The fuck?
Pros were also the first and last recipients
Yo,
of the
I
league's
mean, it's
championship
better than
trophy,
nothing.
known as
Shit.
the Brunswick Balky Colander Cup, which to this day represents one of the greatest mysteries in NFL lore. It was lost after that first season, and this is the only known picture of it.
Wow. Somebody
Following
stole
the
it or
league's
some
first
shit?
year, 2 teams renamed themselves and 1 moved. The Decatur Staleys, setting up shop in Chicago and winning their first ever championship while they were at it. The Chicago Tigers, meanwhile, folded, but 8 new teams joined. The league was now up to 21 teams, all still
Bro,
located
what
in
are some of
Midwest.
these names, bro? And bro, Evansville Crimson Giants. I ain't gonna lie, that's low-key hard. I'm not gonna hold you. Tonawanda, bro. Okay, yeah, they were not even trying with most of these names, bro. What? The Washington Senators? Okay, bro. They gotta be trolling. They got
Several
to.
of the new additions didn't last long. The Tonawanda Cardex holding the ultimate one-hit wonder crown, playing just 1 league game, thereby making it the shortest-lived franchise.
That
in
is
NFL
crazy.
history. The Dexy's Midnight Runners of teams. The Green Bay Packers, however, would stick around,
Yeah.
cementing itself as one of the most storied franchises in the league.
In Green Bay, Wisconsin, a team was founded with
Still one of the best franchises to this day.
Company. They became known as the Packers.
The Green Bay Packers were one of those first teams that stadium was constructed with football as its main sport being played.
Damn, look at all them cars.
No other team in the league
Like-
has played in the
like
same
that's
city
all the same
under
cars,
the same
too.
name for as long as Green Bay has. Following the 21 season, 7 teams
1922.
left the league and 4 new ones joined. The Milwaukee Badgers, the Oorang Indians, the Racine Legion, and the Toledo Maroons. The Staleys,
some of these
meantime,
names are
made a
crazy.
good call and changed their name to the Bears.
Okay.
Their owner, George Halas, picked Bears because they originally were
One of the
playing their
worst
games in the
franchises.
same stadium as the
Just
Chicago
give me an NFL
Cubs.
history.
Halas not only wanted to connect his new team to the more established baseball franchise, but he also reasoned that football players in general were bigger than baseball players, so the name made sense on multiple levels. But the even bigger name change that took place that year was the leagues. The American Professional Football Association was out, to be known forever on
The
as the
NFL.
National Football League.
Wow.
I think a lot of that comes from wanting to be looked at or viewed as a national organization.
As the 1923 season got underway, it did so without the Evansville Crimson Giants, who bowed out. The Cleveland Indians, Duluth Kellys, and St. Louis All-Stars.
I ain't even gonna lie. St. Louis All-Star sounds like a hardcore ass name. I ain't even gonna lie. I don't know why they didn't keep that.
In 1924,
Do y'all think that the NFL will add like more
rejoined
teams to the
cities
league,
of
like
Frankfurt,
in like the near
Kenosha,
future?
and Kansas City, all being granted membership in the league. A year later, though, Kenosha, Racine, and Minneapolis all left. The Blues changed their name to the Cowboys, Canton rejoined, and Detroit, Providence, Pottsville, and New York were all added to the mix. The Giants, the lone team to stick, making them the fourth oldest team in the league.
Tim Mara set up his storefront in the Polo Grounds, located on Upper Manhattan's Coogan's Bluff.
The New York Giants name came about really to attach pro football team with their Major League Baseball.
That was a tight spiral, I ain't even gonna lie.
Trying to gain some of that fandom from Major League Baseball.
That means ultimately the name Giants was inspired by all the skyscrapers in New York. In
Ah,
1926,
okay.
three teams changed their names, including the league's first ever champs, the Akron Pros, who switched to the Indians. 3 franchises were dropped, but the Racine Legion came back as the Tornadoes, and 4 others were also added. The Brooklyn Lions, the Hartford Blues, the Louisville Colonels, and the Los Angeles Buccaneers, marking the first time the league had a team out west, although they never actually played any games
Bro,
in LA.
that logo was
Had a team
crazy,
out
bro.
west.
Is that a pirate with lipstick on? What the fuck?
Although they never actually played any games in LA.
Ultimately, the LA Buccaneers played as a traveling team and really took up shop in Chicago. Played out of that city and then traveled as a barnstorming team, really.
The NFL really shook things up the following season when it got rid of more than half of its member clubs.
Wow.
The Cleveland Bulldogs were back, and the New York Yankees
Cleveland.
were added. 12
Wait, what?
teams now making up the young league. And yes, I said the New York Yankees. The NFL
Wait,
was down to 10
so wait, hold on. So the NFL had the New York Yankees before MLB?
teams the next year. Duluth and
Am I
Buffalo
tripping?
losing their spots in the league, while the Cleveland Bulldogs moved to Detroit and became the Wolverines.
I never
They
knew
didn't
this.
last
I ain't even gonna
long.
lie.
One of 3 teams to fold up shop the next season. Buffalo came back, and the Orange Tornadoes, Staten Island Stapletons, and Minneapolis Red Jackets all joined. Come on in. Now, as the NFL began its second decade in existence, the turnover of teams was starting to slow down a little bit. 3 franchises were dropped, 2 joined. The Portsmouth Spartans, who are known today as the Detroit Lions and are the 5th oldest team in the NFL.
Portsmouth
1931, the
Spartans.
Cleveland Indians were back. However, the Red Jackets and Tornadoes dropped out. 1932 was another significant blip on the NFL timeline. The Indians, Steamrollers, and Yellow Jackets departed, and the Boston Braves were added, which you know today is the Washington Redskins. But by adding only 1 team and losing
Bro, I'm
3,
dead ass
the league
surprised he
was
said
down to 8
Redskins, bro.
teams. It was the smallest the league ever got.
We had the league really trying to protect itself and stay with fewer teams but have them more successful.
Then in 1933, the Cincinnati Reds were introduced to pro football, along with 2 Pennsylvania franchises that would establish permanent roots in the
Eagles.
league. The Pittsburgh Pirates, who
Pittsburgh
eventually changed their name
Pirates.
to the Steelers, and the
Okay.
Philadelphia Eagles.
It's funny when you read the stories leading up to the first game that the team played. Blood Ray was very optimistic. We're a first-year team, but we're going to surprise people. Well, they went out and they played their first game against the New York Giants and lost 56-0.
Damn.
Philadelphia owners Burt Bell and Lud
What?
Ray
Okay,
settled on the
bro.
name-
Okay,
and
no,
lost
no, no,
56-0.
Philadelphia
What is this throw?
owners Burt Bell
Nigga, you playing the wrong sport? This ain't basketball.
and Lud Ray settled on the name
fuck?
Eagles in honor of the symbol used by the National Recovery Act that was part of Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal that followed in the wake of the Great Depression. The 33 season
Damn, bro,
was
got
also
put on
when
his
the owner of
ass.
the Boston Braves decided it was time for a new name.
George Preston Marshall
Boston
wanted to
Redskins.
stick
Wait,
with
when
the
was this
Native
video
American
made?
theme, so
Oh, it was
he
5 years
wanted to
ago. That's
keep
why
the
he said
Braves name
Redskins.
because,
Okay.
that was the name of the baseball franchise. So he chose the Redskins.
That season was also the first in which divisions were created, which set up the first official NFL championship game.
Bears ball on their own 12-yard line.
Prior to that, the league champion was simply the team that had the best record at the end of the season. The Bears would represent the West, the Giants the East, with Chicago beating New York 23-21 for the title.
That game really was the beginning of the popularity of pro football.
The following year saw the same exact 10 teams return, marking the first time in the league's history there were no changes. But mid-season, the Cincinnati Reds folded and were replaced by the St. Louis Gunners for the last 3 games. It would be the only 3 games they would play as an NFL franchise.
What the
Also
hell?
in 1934, the Portsmouth Spartans moved to Detroit and changed their name to the Lions. The name was inspired by baseball's Detroit Tigers, though the team had a different explanation. Quote, "The lion is considered the monarch of the jungle, and we hope to be the monarch of the league." From 1935
That didn't end up
to
happening.
1936, the same 9 teams
Yo,
remained,
but shout out
but
to the
it was
Lions, though.
in 36 that the NFL held its first ever draft.
Before 1936, every player coming out of college was a free agent. And a lot of times, those players were going to the team's
Gosh,
biggest
bro.
checkbook.
Yo, that
The
could have
Eagles used
been
the
way
first ever
worse.
pick
I thought
on
he was about to
Chicago
body slam
Maroons
this nigga.
halfback and first ever winner of the Heisman Trophy, Jay Berwanger. But Berwanger would never play it down in the NFL. The Bears, who acquired his rights from the Eagles, were not able to meet Berwanger's salary demands, which ultimately led him to take a job in sales for a rubber company.
Damn, that's
It's true.
tough.
1937, the Boston Redskins made the move to Washington, and the NFL grew back to 10 teams, awarding a franchise to the Cleveland Rams. These are the same Rams that call Los Angeles home today. The name Rams came about because their GM at the time, Damon Buzz Wetzel's favorite college football team, had always been the Fordham Rams, so they simply copied it. As the 30s came to a close, the league was starting to stabilize. There were no changes to the NFL landscape in either 1938 or 39. But 1939 was monumental for the future of the league, even if its participants didn't realize it at the time.
The Brooklyn Dodgers hosted the Philadelphia Eagles before a crowd of 13,000 fans. Few, if any, in attendance even noticed the cameras of NBC station W2XBS.
Damn, that's a
Their
big
presence
ass
marked
camera.
The first ever telecast of a professional football game.
The first ever TV broadcast was only seen in parts of New York, but the seed was planted. The game's financial future, stability, and popularity were all secured with the marriage between the NFL and television. The 1940 season was significant for 2 reasons. First, Pittsburgh traded in the Pirates nickname.
They changed their name to the Steelers because of a steel worker ultimately proposed the name Steelers, and that stuck, knowing that the steel industry was so big in that area.
That year also saw the first iteration of the now famous NFL Shield, the league unveiling the iconic logo for the very first time.
Okay.
And the Chicago Bears introduced its first official team logo, a black bear
The
running with
fuck?
a football. Now here's the thing. Most NFL teams have updated their logos several times over. So if you pay close attention to the map, you'll see how those updates happen. The league's member clubs continue to remain
The Bears
steady until
ended up changing their logo
1943.
again
That's
this
the
year.
season the Cleveland Rams suspended operations for a year, but did not fold. It was due in part because of so many of their players were drafted
the fuck?
into
They running with
military
guns?
service for World War II, which is also what led the Eagles and Steelers to merge, taking on the unofficial nickname, the Steagles. Yeah!
The Steelers struggled
Bro,
for years
what?
and years. It took them a decade and merging with the Philadelphia Eagles before they had their first ever winning season.
In 1944, the Eagles were back on their own, but Pittsburgh was still on shaky ground, so they looked for a new team to merge with, and they found a willing partner in the Chicago Cardinals, the combined teams known as Card Pit. The
Okay,
league
that's
also added the Boston
bro.
Yanks.
That is
The Cleveland Rams
horrible.
returned.
That is
and
a
the Brooklyn
horrible
Dodgers
ass
changed
name.
their name to the Brooklyn Tigers. In 45, the Cardinals and Steelers merger was over. Both teams went back on their own. But the Brooklyn Tigers and Boston Yanks joined forces to form a new team known simply as the Yanks. Like the previous 2 mergers, it didn't last long. In 1946, the Tigers folded, so the Boston Yanks were back on their own. That same season saw the Rams pack up and head west for the sunny skies of Los Angeles, marking the first time actual games were played in LA proper.
Okay.
The Cleveland Rams won a championship in 1945, and then their owner, Dan Reeves, moved them out to LA. This is maybe the only time that I can think of where a professional team won a championship and then moved locations.
1947 and 48 came and went without any additions, subtractions, or relocations. But in 49, the Boston Yanks moved to New York and became the New York Bulldogs. Then came the next big expansion when the NFL merged with the All-America Football Conference in 1950, adding 3 new teams. The San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Colts, though not the same Baltimore Colts franchise that would emerge a few years later, and the Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
The Browns opened their season against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia.
Cleveland Browns, a horrible franchise.
Most of them National League fans of former years. The Browns had shocked the professional football world with a rude 35-10 jolting to the Eagles.
The Browns formed in 1945, and they're the only team named after a person. The inspiration coming from Cleveland's first head coach and GM, Paul Brown.
Oh, so that's where the Browns came from. Okay.
Being named the Brown.
I always wanted that. I'm not even gonna lie.
I do think in this area, Paul Brown is football.
Okay.
And his name really is.
I was like, what the fuck is a Brown, bro?
Like the Browns being named the Browns.
But they named it after him.
49ers
Okay.
name, on the other hand,
That's
is more
pretty
straightforward.
sick.
56,000 witnessed an encore between the Rams of Los Angeles and the San Francisco 49ers.
They were named after the settlers who ventured into the San Francisco area during the Gold,
The Gold
Rush
Rush,
of 1849.
I remember hearing about this.
Perry, and he's
Dude, I think I learned about that in school. I'm not even gonna lie, because one of my teachers was a
The first
NFL
incarnation
fan.
of
So
the Colts didn't last long, folding
And
after the
we
1950
were talking about that
season.
shit in
They were
class,
followed out the door the
like a
next
couple years
season
ago.
by the New York Yanks, who were replaced by the Dallas Texans. The Texans' stay in the NFL was brief. The team lasted just 1 season of play.
The Dallas Texans, they're the last franchise to fold in the National Football League.
The league found its replacements for the Texans the following year when the second iteration of the Baltimore Colts emerged. And these Colts would have staying power, as they are the same Colts who have since moved to Indianapolis. Baltimore fans were given the opportunity to vote on a team name, and they stuck with Colts, not only as an homage to the team that had just folded a few seasons earlier, but as a way to honor the region's history of horse breeding. From 1953 to 1959, all was quiet. No new teams added, none dropped. 1960, however, was a pivotal year. The Chicago Cardinals moved to St. Louis, and we saw the birth of America's team.
Eddie LeBaron uncorks the Cowboys' money play.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say Dallas is America's team anymore, bro. I'm gonna keep it a buck.
The Cowboys originally
Like what? Who gave them the title America's team? Though I just want to know.
But their GM, Texas E.
Because
Schramm,
that nigga
decided
Jerry
having
Jones
a
is really
castrated
destroying this
bovine as a
franchise.
mascot might lead to
How
some
the fuck you muff that,
unwanted
bro?
ridicule. So they shifted gears and were leaning towards Rangers instead. But because there was already a local minor league baseball team with that name, Schramm settled on Cowboys, and the rest is history.
Okay.
Even bigger than the Cowboys joining the fold was the emergence of the American Football League.
You know, if you look back at the year of 1960, you probably remember a great many sports events. However, I doubt that anything was more important than the establishment of the American Football League.
The AFL was originally made up of 8 teams. The Houston Oilers, who eventually became the Tennessee Titans, the New York Titans, who are now the Jets, the Buffalo Bills, the Boston Patriots, now the New England Patriots, the Los Angeles Chargers, the Dallas Texans, who would later become the Kansas City Chiefs, the Oakland Raiders, and the Denver Broncos.
They all wanted
Oakland's
NFL
now
franchise,
in Las Vegas
but
now,
most of
so.
these owners had, enough money in their own right to start a franchise. But the league was very strategic about how they were going to expand, and so they weren't quite ready to expand yet.
The Broncos got their name from a fan who offered it up in a Name the Team contest. He noted the animal's toughness and said the Denver area was well known for its wild Broncos. Name the Team contests were a very popular way teams came up with their nicknames. They were so popular, in fact, it's how the LA Chargers came up with theirs.
This time, passing to Norton, and it's good for a touchdown.
Team owner Baron Hilton reportedly liked the name so much, he didn't open another letter after coming across what turned out to be the winning submission. Barron told reporters he always liked the "Charge" bugle cry that fans would bellow out at games. Buffalo had a team in the All-America Football Conference years before they went by the Bills. The Bills' nickname was a reference to Buffalo Bill Cody. When owner Ralph Wilson bought the team, he held a contest and picked Bills out of respect to the city's defunct AAFC team.
Fast action, skill, and precision teamwork bring spectacular thrills to the fans. Professional football at its exciting best.
Damn.
74 fans voted for Patriots in their naming contest, connecting them to the men who originally fought to establish the United States as a country. Pat Patriot, the cartoon of a Minuteman preparing to snap a football, was drawn by a Boston Globe employee and was chosen as the logo soon after.
And it's away to Jimmy Coco in the end zone for the touchdown.
An Oakland woman originally submitted the winning entry to name Oakland's franchise, coming up with Señors. The name alluded to the old Spanish settlers of Northern California. But when it got out, there was so much criticism, even claims the contest was fixed, they decided to pick another one of the entries, going with Raiders, which they selected over Lakers. The following year, the Chargers
I'm glad they went Raiders, bro. There's only one Lakers team,
the NFL
bro.
added the Minnesota Vikings to its lineup, giving it an even 14 teams.
Hi, this is a Minnesota Viking football helmet. It was in the middle of a lot of hard-nosed football last year.
Minnesota got its name from their GM, Bert Rose, who recommended the name because Vikings were aggressive people with a will to win, and it would honor the Nordic tradition in the northern Midwest.
It doesn't take Tarkenton long to prove that he's one rookie who's here to stay.
Frank the man Tarkenton. This is the original Patrick Mahomes,
the
bro.
Vikings are the first team to actually use a
He
region.
normalized like
franchise
scrambling
name
and shit
as opposed to
as
the
a
city that
QB.
they play in.
No changes in 1962, but in 1963, the New York Titans changed their name to the Jets.
Okay.
Let's go, 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 Jets. The fighting green will beat them all.
They originally were going to
Sound
name
low-key
the team
fire, ain't gonna lie.
Dodgers, but got pushback from Major League Baseball. Gothams also got some
New York
consideration,
Gothams?
but they
Bro,
balked when
no.
they realized it would get shortened to
Ew.
Goths. They almost got
New
the
York Goths?
boroughs,
Okay, bro.
certainly an homage
What are these names?
to the city's famous neighborhoods, but team officials worried opposing fans would translate it their own way and start calling them the Jackasses.
The management of the New York Jets welcomes you to the first football game.
Oh, that's funny.
Eventually, they
New
went
York
with Jets,
Jackasses.
since they planned to play their
Fucking
home games in
hilarious.
Shea Stadium, which was close to LaGuardia Airport.
Okay.
In 1963, the Dallas Texans relocated to Kansas City and changed their name to the Chiefs.
Professional football, that most fascinating, most exciting of all spectator sports, came to Mid-America in 1963 when the Dallas Texans became the Kansas City Chiefs.
Owner Lamar Hunt didn't pick Chiefs right away, also considering Mules, Royals, and Stars. He went with Chiefs because
Royals
he
and
said
Stars don't
large
sound
number of
too
Native
bad.
Americans
Kansas
lived
City
here.
Royals,
Hunt may
Kansas City
also have
Stars.
chosen it due
That
to
low-key
Kansas
snap,
City's
I ain't gonna
mayor,
lie.
Roy Bartle. Bartle helped lure the team to Kansas City, and his nickname was, you guessed it, the Chief. Nothing changed in 64, nothing changed in 65. But in 1966, everything changed.
Atlanta
First, the Atlanta
Falcons.
Falcons came on the scene.
Randy Johnson connected with Gary Barnes for the Falcons' first touchdown in championship play.
Over 500 different names were offered up by fans, including the Atlanta Peaches, the Vibrants, Lancers, Confederates,
Ew.
Firebirds, and Thrashers.
I ain't gonna lie, the Thrashers sound cold. I ain't gonna lie, the Atlanta Thrashers. That low-key, I ain't gonna lie, that low-key
By several
snap.
people, but the
Those
winner of
other
the
names,
contest
hell
was a
no.
school teacher whose entry described the Falcon as proud and dignified, with great courage to fight. She noted it never drops its prey, is deadly,
Damn.
and
Oh
has
my
great
gosh, bro,
sporting
got
tradition.
lit up.
I think it's wonderful. The Falcons won.
I was real satisfied.
Why he look like Brock Purdy?
The AFL
Bro,
I was real satisfied.
they look like that could be Brock Purdy's dad. I ain't gonna hold you.
Gosh, I think it was great.
The AFL also expanded that season, adding the Miami Dolphins as its 9th team.
The Dolphins' debut must go down in football history as the most thrilling first play ever made by any new team anywhere. Joe Hour from
They
nearby
gonna crib
Coral
it?
Gables High School and a Georgia Tech alumnus
Damn,
takes the
that
opening
nigga
kickoff
gone.
and races 95 yards for a touchdown.
Over 600 fans suggested Dolphins.
The ownership group liked that the dolphin was the smartest, fastest creature of the sea.
I love
Being
Dolphins.
an expansion team, he needed a lot of things to perhaps draw people into it, and he would throw the footballs back out. So Flipper was cool.
But the biggest shift to take place that year came at season end.
Yeah, get that starting lineup here, get a program football lineup here.
When the NFL and AFL champions met to face one another in the first ever Super Bowl.
And this is it, the American Football League National Football League Championship.
The Green Bay Packers beat the Kansas City Chiefs handily, 35-10.
Damn,
Professional
35-10
football was
is
on its way to
crazy.
taking over as the country's new national.
Bro, I'm
pastime.
glad they changed the damn field goal post, because that shit should not be in the end zone, bro. Like,
And professional football was on its way to taking over as the country's new national pastime.
Ooh, what a catch. Okay.
Belongs to the big team from the small town.
In 1967, the NFL added yet another new team, this time in New Orleans, and
New Orleans
fittingly,
Saints.
they were awarded their franchise on November 1st, which is All Saints Day.
Okay.
However, the name came from yet another Name the Team contest.
They love
Owner
these,
John
huh?
Beacom acknowledged he chose it as a nod to the popular song When the Saints Go Marching In, which was a favorite among many of the city's street jazz bands.
Okay.
It was the AFL's turn to grow in 19...
Lil bro was getting it too. Look at this shit.
It was the AFL's turn to grow in
Yo,
1968. which is
that
when they
nigga was
added
getting
the Cincinnati
jiggy with it,
Bengals.
gang.
Down by 8 points with a minute
the
and
Bengals.
54 seconds left in the game, Dewey Warren hit Bob Trumpy for a touchdown.
Team owner and general manager Paul Brown chose Bengals to honor a football team that played in Cincy from 1937 to 1941. He chose the nickname over the fans' most popular suggestion, the Buckeyes. 2 years later, in 1970, the NFL and the AFL finally merged, all 10 teams from the American Football League being absorbed by the NFL.
Most NFL players and coaches and administrators didn't look at the AFL as being in the same league
I do not
as the
get that.
National Football League and its club members. And so Super Bowl III, when the New York Jets shocked the world and defeated the Baltimore Colts, and then the Kansas City Chiefs winning Super Bowl IV, probably was the best thing for the league moving into its merger, because it really put both leagues on equal playing field.
The following year, the Patriots dropped Boston as its location identifier, swapping it for New England. Then from 1972 to 75, it was another quiet stretch for the league. But in 1976, the Seattle Seahawks and Tampa Bay Buccaneers joined the fold.
Okay.
A panel of sports writers, along with Tampa Bay owner Hugh Culverson, chose Buccaneers from an original list of more than 400 as a
Damn.
nod to the pirates who raided Florida's coastline in the 17th century. Seattle, meantime, received more than 1,700 unique suggestions, including the Seattle Skippers,
No.
the Pioneers, the Lumberjacks, and the Seattle Seagulls. Seattle GM John
Nah,
Thompson
bro.
said they went with Seahawks because
Seahawks
it
is
suggests
just fine.
aggressiveness, reflects our soaring Northwest heritage, and wasn't being used by any other major league teams. The NFL landscape then went unchanged until 1982, and that's when the Raiders moved south to Los Angeles. In 1984, the Baltimore Colts packed
Bro,
up
that
and moved to
rivalry between the
Indianapolis.
Raiders and the damn
4 years
Niners,
later,
bro.
In 88, the Cardinals
That
were on the
shit's
move
crazy.
again, heading west to Arizona, initially going by the Phoenix Cardinals. In 1994, though, they went statewide, changing their name to the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay.
Then in 1995, the Rams took the Cardinals' place in St. Louis, and the Raiders went back to Oakland, leaving LA with no NFL teams. It was also time for expansion once again. The Carolina Panthers and Jacksonville Jaguars becoming franchises.
The Jaguars play their first NFL game against the Houston Oilers.
The Jaguars were the result of another fan contest.
Surprisingly, the initial concept for their logo on their helmet was very similar to the car Jaguar logo. However, shortly after, a cease and desist letter was sent by the Jaguar car company, and they decided to go with a different style logo.
The home opener for the expansion Carolina Panthers.
Carolina ownership chose Panthers
right.
because they believed it symbolized what an NFL team should be: powerful, sleek, and strong.
For the Panthers, the wait is finally over as they make their home debut.
What was the other
today,
names they
and there's
had
one thing on their
before they
minds,
got the Panthers?
Carolina.
In 1996, the Cleveland Browns were moved to Baltimore. However, the Ravens would be considered a new franchise, with the Browns
Yes,
essentially
sir.
suspending operations, keeping their colors,
Block
records,
Nation.
and history.
A record crowd expected in Baltimore as the NFL returns to this city for the first time since 1983.
Baltimore owner Art Modell attempted and failed to buy the Colts nickname back from the franchise that left Baltimore for Indy in 1984. So once again, a name the team contest was held. Ravens beat out the Marauders and the Americans, and was a nod to Baltimore native Edgar Allan Poe's famous poem titled The Raven. 1997 saw the Houston Oilers pack up and move to Tennessee, though they initially kept the name Oilers. They changed it to Titans in 1999. Their naming contest produced options like the Tennessee Tornadoes, the Copperheads, the South Stars, and the Wranglers, among others.
Tennessee Wranglers.
Owner Bud Adams chose Titans because it reflected strength, leadership, and other heroic qualities. That same year saw the return of the Browns, who picked up right where they left off after missing the previous 2 seasons. Then in 2002, the Houston Texans were added, filling out the current 32-team league as we know it today.
Reliance Stadium, 69,000 fans who were crushed when the Oilers left.
Damn, that stadium is packed.
The Texans.
The Texans became the 6th professional football team to use the name. Owner Bob McNair choosing it over Apollos and Stallions. The Texans logo, by the way, is the only one of the 32 teams that has never been tinkered with. For the next 10 plus years, it was nothing but teams altering their logos. Most of the changes pretty minor in nature. It wasn't until 2016 that the next landscaping alterations took place.
St. Louis went back to LA.
The St. Louis Rams moving back to LA, who were followed by the Chargers a season later. And finally, in 2020, the Raiders vacate Oakland for a second time, this time heading east for the desert, setting up shop in Las Vegas. Expansion, contraction, mergers, name changes. The NFL has seen it all in its first 100 years, and we can only imagine how far this map will stretch in the century to come.
Hey, man, that was a good vid, bro. You know what I'm saying? Now I know how every team got its name. Now, a lot of those names were absolutely questionable, bro. Like, yo, but hey, man, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Y'all let me know what other NFL videos y'all want me to react to. Without further ado, I'm out. Gang!